messages only interrupt that possibly interrupt your
Good evening, everyone. Alan, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's midterms went well. I know finals week is coming up. Thank you guys for coming. If you guys don't know already, this is the Pre-Law Society at UCLA. My name is Saeed Ahmed, and I'm the president. Today we brought our esteemed guest, Hamad Zahawi. He is the founder and CEO of Right Track Admissions. He's got a great resume, and he's here to talk to us about his organization and basically about what he does. And he's here to provide advice to you guys in a variety of different aspects of the law. And we're happy to have him here. And he's going to give us a presentation about his organization. And as we're going, we'll have me and our moderator, Patrick Bejian, will be asking questions to him regarding his experience. And we should have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the presentation if you guys have questions, and you guys can speak to him after as well. So please give a round of applause to Hamad.
Thank you, guys. Hang on.
There we go.
Should come up. There we go. Okay.
Well, do you want me to join through the lights, or you good?
No, we're good. I think we're good. Okay. So thank you very much, Saeed and the team here for hosting me for this Pre-Law Society. So I assume everybody here is applying to law school or considering law. Who here is definitely on the law school path? Okay. You're
halfway.
Okay, we'll get you on board. Tell me why do you want to go to law school?
I'm interested in business law. I've took a class at my community college.
Okay. Why do you want to go to law school?
I'm interested in doing law also.
In terms of what? What's appealing about the law for you?
Criminal law.
Criminal law.
Yeah.
What about it?
I don't really like the way that criminal justice system currently is,
Okay.
and I would like to sort of understand it more and get into it and see how it can help basically fix some of the issues that I have.
Cool. What about you?
I'm Latina, and I grew up just like watching my grandparents, like hearing about their struggles as like immigrants and underrepresented populations. So I just wanted to go into law to like serve as an advocate for people who have struggled to get their rights.
Okay. Fantastic. What about you?
I like the aspect that law can protect people that that don't have the tools to protect themselves. So that's what I want to do.
Okay. Can we kill the door? Is this good? Yeah. Can't hear properly. Who here has gone to UCLA Law and audited a class or checked it out or anything like that? Awesome. Okay. So we'll talk about different things that you guys should be doing to help you kind of get a better sense of why, especially you who kind of can. What was your name? The guy with glasses?
Nizam.
Nazar, since you're the only one I need to convince. These are kind of ways that you better have a better understanding, so you have a more informed opinion, because it's obviously a big decision. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a background of who I am. My name is Hamad Zahawi. I'm a lawyer. I started Right Track Admissions in 2008, but when I started, and the reason I started it is because of this whole law school process. Even though the genesis of it, the real thought about it was that I had a lot of difficulties applying to undergrad because my standardized scores weren't very good, and they consistently were never good. Whether I took the LSAT or the SATs or the GREs, my scores were always horrible. So the idea of not being able to get into a top school because of my standardized score, a 3-hour exam, was just ludicrous to me. So I always thought that there was a way that you can kind of figure out what to put into your applications to give you guys the best shot at admissions, right? And that's kind of how I started the idea of Right Track and kind of where it went. So I'll go into a little bit of background of who I am. This is kind of my background. I'll get rid of that, so you guys have to ignore that top things. I'm doing a Facebook Live, so that's going to stay there. My bad. So just in terms of background, I went to UCSB. I actually studied abroad. I studied in Egypt for 8 years before I came to the U.S. I mean, I lived in the U.S., went to Egypt, back to Egypt, and then came here as an international student / California resident. But I've been back here every summer. And I took the SAT not once, not twice, but 3 times, and barely hit the 4-digit mark by the end. It was pathetic. But I did the International Baccalaureate, and I was able to get into UCSB. And then after 2 years there, a year and a half, I realized I just can't do any more keg stands or any of that crap. So I was like, I need to get out, I need to go to a school that I felt was a lot more serious in terms of what I wanted to study. Especially I was interested in history and political science, and I felt like Santa Barbara, even though they had a good program, I didn't feel like the caliber of the students in terms of their interests really aligned with what was going on. By way of background, I'm Iraqi American, so for me, politics and history and culture and so forth was very, very important to my, to my being and so forth. So I went to UCLA. While I was here, I was the president of the United Arab Society right after September 11th. So you can imagine the firepower that was coming out of that whole experience was pretty miserable for a lot of Arab Americans and Muslim Americans that were in the US, especially at UCLA at that time. But that experience in and of itself actually really helped cement my career trajectory. It helped cement, give me a lot of confidence in terms of what I wanted to do. And do things I didn't think I was capable of doing because of that experience. So went to UCLA, did history, poli-sci minor. How many of you guys here are doing minors? Okay, and for me it was a coincidence. It was just the fact that I had already taken like maybe 4 or 5 political science classes, so I'm like, let me just do, I think it was like 1 or 2 more, and I ended up doing a minor in political science. I just said, why not, I might as well do it. I think my last year and a half, the half of my senior year was just political science classes just to knock it out. I took the LSAT I graduated in 2002, and as you guys can imagine, right after September 11th, the economy crashed. So it was a really, really hard economy, and I did really well. I was summa cum laude, I have a 396 from UCLA. But I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. Law was kind of out there, and I'll talk a hell of a lot more about this, and we can talk about this offline after we finish the main presentation. But I kind of thought, okay, law did make sense. I didn't sound like any of you guys. You guys sound a lot more that you have a point of why you want to go, which is, again, obviously why you're in the Pre-Law Society. I wasn't part of Pre-Law. I didn't even know if I wanted to go into law. So I took the LSAT in December 2002. I didn't feel I did well enough, so I canceled my score. Took it again in June of 2003. Took the score, got a 155. Said, you know what, I'm not going to get into the schools I wanted. I want to get into a T10 because I had a great GPA and I felt I had a good story to tell. So I just spent from July, August, September, October, November just working on my application. Like I was diligent, I was on that. Now don't forget, you guys are in school, I was out of school. So I was I was working actually for a really very prestigious law firm as a legal clerk, or I guess they called us, I think legal assistants or whatever they called us in Century City. So it gave me time, like you're in the mix of it, you have lawyers all around you, so I was like, oh, this is a good time for me to just kind of also focus on my application, study for the LSAT, but really kind of dig my heels into this process. So I applied in October, November, December. I think my last application went out in December. My first application went out in October. And then took the LSAT again in December, right? For the 3rd time. And again, I tried to do all, I took test masters, I tried everything. I can't even tell how many exams I took. And I got my score in January, and guess how I did? Worse. So I actually got 2 points worse. And I had the audacity to tell the school, hey guys, don't look at my application yet until I get my final score, because this is going to really help me, it's going to get me over the goal line. And it destroyed my application. So I ended up applying to 17 law schools, and I got into 1. Waitlisted, I think, at 6. Some schools even got me into their master's program, not their law degree, and that's how stupid the whole process was, I swear to God. But my top choice was obviously, I think it was Yale, then Harvard, then Columbia, then Berkeley. And thankfully I got into Berkeley for law school, which to me was a huge deal, and I really I didn't let that, I wasn't gonna go to Berkeley and just kind of wing it. I wanted to do the best I could. Not academically, I didn't care as much about the grades. Unlike undergrad, where it was all about the grades, because that was that's how you're gonna get the scholarships. Actually, when I was at UCLA, I ended up in my last year getting almost a full ride because I went to the honors department. I'm like, guys, I'm over 3.9. You gotta give me some kind of financial, grant money. And they're like, here's a booklet, take a look at it. And I flipped through the booklet, I'm like, I'm gonna apply to this, I'm gonna apply to this, I'm gonna apply to this. And suddenly, next thing you know, I was making more money than I was given in terms of the tuition and the housing. Because these are the scholarships that are available, nobody's gonna tell you about, right? So when I went to law school, I wasn't as concerned about crushing it in terms of grades, especially when I got there. It was no joke. It was a really, really hard experience, especially the first year. Went to UCLA, and long and short of it is, and this is a long, long conversation in terms of what I did at UC Berkeley for law school. But the long and short of it is, there was some things that really stood out for me that was an awesome, amazing experience about Berkeley. Number one, I was able to publish an article in the Law Review and then get on the Law Review, which was really, really hard, especially that the article I published was about the occupation of the US on Iraq. So that was rare that they would publish something that was kind of politically edgy, but also legal was about transformative occupation, the laws of war and the law, international law. So I got on the Law Review. I started a law journal, the Berkeley Journal of Middle Eastern Islamic Law, with a group of people. There's another one at UCLA, and we basically modeled the one at Berkeley around that one. We started the first Islamic law symposium, Islamic finance symposium on the West Coast at Berkeley. So we did that. This is the other great thing I did at Berkeley was that I taught classes in the undergrad, as in like a TA, and that helped me pay off my tuition. So I graduated actually with a profit, which is very rare in law school. Don't forget, at the time, tuition at Berkeley was $18,000, and then I think by the time I graduated it was like $25,000. Now I think it's like a little $42,000. But basically every single summer I summered as an associate, as a summer associate at a law firm. And the first summer I was lucky as hell, even though my grades were not great at all. I was able to get a law firm job. Then I took a year out and I did a master's in the middle of law school. I took an administrative leave, went to Cambridge, did a master's in international relations. Again, leveraging the undergraduate grades I had to get in there with scholarship money. Did my master's, came back, transferred 10 units from Cambridge back to law school, so I was able to kind of take even more of a chill course load. Then I summered that summer, so that was 2 summers now, even though I wasn't a law student, I was a master's student. Then I came back and I summered during my second year, which is when you usually summer. Because the second year you summer at a law firm, and then they'd give you an offer and then you'd go back after you graduate, they'd pay for your bar expenses and all that. You guys know about that stuff. So I did that, so I had 3 summers, plus I worked every single semester as a grader or as a TA. And so by the time I graduated, I actually had a profit, which was amazing. Because it allowed me to kind of not feel that golden handcuffs that like, damn, I've got $150,000 in debt, I have no choice but to work at a law firm, right? That was really like, for me, I was so like set not to graduate with debt.
So Hamada, I have one question.
Please.
So how were you able to take initiative, these scholarships, doing a TA? Like it's almost like you had a business mindset from the start. Who like ingrained that in you? How did that?
No, I mean, the scholarship thing, I think it was just like, I felt like, man, you're killing yourself, you're doing well in school. They should give you props for that. They should give you some love for that. Otherwise, and then obviously if you can't afford to pay your tuition, what's going to happen? And you're getting good grades. You're going to have to take a part-time job. If you take a part-time job, that's a distraction. It's not a bad thing. In fact, if you had a 3.9 and a 3.8, and the guy who took a 3.8 was working part-time, and the one who got a 3.95 wasn't, I almost think they'd give you love for the person that has a 3.8 who's working. Especially if you write that in your application. Because it just shows a sense of responsibility and the ability to balance things versus a person that was just dedicated to studying, to be honest with you. So, I mean, for me, it was this mission critical that I just tried to explore it, and I just felt like there's got to be some money out there. Now, I already had transferred into the honors program because I think when I transferred, you automatically got into that. And so then I just went to that, as I said, I went there and I just asked them randomly. I got to know them and I asked them, they're like, yeah, just check it out. And then you just get good at writing these applications. So you just start copying and pasting them, changing a couple of words here and there, and boom, you start farming them out. And suddenly you get money out of nowhere. People want that. People want people like you, people of color, people that are dedicated, people are getting good grades because you're going to be the poster child that they're going to talk about. Right? So that's how I was able to do that. In Berkeley, I didn't get a single scholarship because in law school, getting money is almost near impossible. It's really hard, right? So when I got there, I just had a lot of friends who had gone to Berkeley undergrad. And at the time, they wanted more law students to teach classes than even grad students. And I got to know a couple of professors, and they're like every semester, hey, come in, grade my exams, teach this class as a TA, not teach a class, but as a TA. And it just became one semester to the next, and we all hooked each other up. I'd be like, hey, you want this, this TA-ship? The guy, there's availability, and I just kept on doing that. The summer jobs is really hard work. That's a lot of work, and I can talk to you guys about how to do that and all that good stuff, but you guys are far from that process. So, those were kind of the main highlights. I summered at a number of law firms. I summered in some of the bigger names, and then I ended up working in San Francisco at a firm called Pillsbury Winthrop in their energy practice, project finance. Really didn't care much about it. It's a law firm job, and again, it was the herd mentality, right? This person got a law firm job, she got a law firm job, he got a law firm job, but what the hell am I going to do, right? And my grades were kind of mediocre, so I wasn't going to go work for a judge. I wasn't going to go into academia. I wasn't going to do a PhD. you know, and then trying to think outside the box when you just graduate from law school and you just want to get that damn bar out of the way. You're just like, fine, I'll just do a law firm job, right? Guess what happened in 2008 when I graduated?
Oh.
Okay. So I mean, I'm talking like they deferred my start date, which was fine. They're like, here's a couple $1,000, let's take a couple of months off. I'm like, this is awesome. So I traveled around. I freaking campaigned for Obama. We did a lot of great stuff. We started at the law firm. Alhamdulillah, I passed the bar. I can't even tell you. Like half the gray hair I have is probably from that damn exam. God bless the people who passed it.
What was harder, the LSAT or the bar?
The LSAT, by far. Because the LSAT is just, it's like the Matrix. It's like either you get it, you see the patterns, or you don't. Law, the bar was just, it was harder than hell. You like basically sat down, you studied, but it was substance.
Memorized.
And it was members, like you sat around with your outline just like memorized for like 2.5 months, just constant. For the bar, for the LSAT, I studied it for like a year. It was miserable. I hope none of you guys have to suffer like I had to suffer that horrible exam. Anyway, so I did that, did the master's, and then after I worked at a law firm and so forth, I ended up getting laid off with the rest of like a ton of people in 2009. So I lasted for almost a year, and then they're like, dude, you just can't bill anymore. There's just not billable hours. It was project finance. You guys know about project finance. It's all about mechanisms of trying to push forward different projects through mechanisms that the money of the project actually funds the whole endeavor, and money dried up everywhere. So that wasn't going to happen. So they basically let me go, and then obviously for me, I was like, okay, I have a bar, I have went to UC Berkeley, so I can apply for a bunch of other law firms, and then you just have to pivot, right? Because that's the beauty of law. I could have gone to bankruptcy, I could have gone to other areas which were, kind of expanding. But for me, I didn't want to go back to law firms. I really didn't. So I started Right Track. And I just pushed hard on Right Track for about 2 years full time. And so one of my clients was like, hey, have you ever considered the US government? I'm like, definitely not. Given what they just did in Iraq, do you really think I would want to work for the US government? And they were like, well, you're under the Obama administration. If there's any time to work for the US government, it would be now. And so I said, okay, let me see what's going on. I ended up getting a job with the US Department of Commerce's Commercial Law Development Program, which was all about international law. So if anybody's interested in international law, like the pure international law, I can talk a lot about that. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I want to do international law. Like, what the hell is international law? Because it's a very complex area. So I did international law, where I was traveling around to about 20 different countries, advising foreign governments on how to improve their laws to encourage trade and investment through the legal system. How do you get entrepreneurs to really rise to the occasion? How do you beef up the private sector? How do you get foreign investors to feel comfortable to invest? And a lot of these are frontier markets, specifically Iraq. And that's where I started. Then I started working in the Gulf, in the Arabian Gulf, Persian Gulf, that area. And then I went to Eastern Europe and then South Asia. So that's the work I did. I then resigned with the change of administration, and then used all that I knew about Right Track and the admissions process to apply to like my dream school. I applied to Harvard, got accepted, and then got a full ride, almost $100,000 scholarship from Harvard, which was awesome. And maximized the experience, got into the Center for Public Leadership and all kinds of stuff. Did that for about a year, and then just moved back to California, which was a little bit of a buzzkill in terms of all the stuff that I'd done. But it's a place I needed to be. My family's here, and they were going through a lot, so I needed to be back here at this time.
Well, I had a question.
Please.
Did you do any traveling during your time at Harvard?
Yeah, so at Harvard, well, everywhere. I mean, I have this goal to see every country on earth.
How many have you been to so far?
I talked about it. 138 countries.
Wow.
So my goal is in the next 5 to 6 years, God willing, I can see the whole world. And so for me, even at Harvard, there was a lot of student treks where you can travel around the world in different places, and they basically help you fund it and subsidize it. And you can go to like places that you normally couldn't get to, like Palestine and Israel, like Pakistan. I went to Bhutan, stuff like that. So those are things I did while I was at Harvard. But the point is, why am I telling you all of this? Is like you can see my career trajectory. It sounds like kind of what Steve Jobs said at the commencement speech in 2005 for Stanford. Have you guys listened to that? One of the best commencement speeches. He always talks about disparate dots that are kind of thrown everywhere, and you just don't think they're going to link. But somehow, it's not even that they link. It just, you make do, you adapt, and you just kind of go through life through a series of experiences. And that's kind of what I've had. I mean, literally nothing makes perfect sense. I didn't do a linear trajectory. I didn't graduate, go to law school, work at a law firm, retire, die. That's, to me, was like, hell no. I was like, you got one shot at this life, so let's try to do the best we can to see as much as we can and experience as much as we can. And each time I do these kind of talks, each time I talk to people like you, that's, to me, what it's all about. This is my zone. This is where I'm in flow. I'm in flow when I talk to people about these things, so I can see the lights light up about different options they have. So that's kind of the whole thing, and we can talk a lot more about that, because I think actually the experiences I've had and so forth could be more informative than this stuff, but this stuff is the bread and butter of what I want to talk about today. Okay. So, I'll quickly go this a hell of a lot of detail up here. So what do we got? Here I kind of gave you guys an idea of the different majors that people apply to when they go to law school. I don't know if you guys think about that, right? So how many of you guys are political science majors? Engineering, math, science, like STEM education stuff. Okay? Humanities, comms, sociology, that kind of stuff. Okay? Economics, history, international relations. What is international relations here? What's it called?
I'm doing international development studies.
Amazing. I actually want to teach a course at UCLA on that. Because that's all I did was international development studies. That's awesome. We should talk. English, literature. Awesome. So you guys are going to crush the statement. Psychology, which I think is an awesome major to do in so many different ways because it's so adaptable to so many different fields, from economics to law to you name it. Finance, philosophy. Awesome. There we go. Finally. Okay. Did I cover everybody? Who did I not cover? What are you doing?
Public affairs and African American studies.
I think public affairs would be like government.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah? That's what it's called here? Public affairs?
Public affairs.
And it's the equivalent of government?
Yeah, I guess, but that's my minor. I'm African American studies major.
Okay. What about you? Did you raise your hand? Yeah, those? Political science. Political science. Anybody I didn't call on in terms of majors? Covered all of them? Okay. So you guys get a sense of this. And you can see like political science is 18%, the humanities and so forth. Those are the majors that people apply with. And here are the background of the things people have done. Now, obviously, you guys are going straight through. Some of you guys, I assume. I took a year out. As I said, I worked as a legal assistant.
Would you recommend?
Taking a year out?
If
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of reasons why you would take a
top
year
law
out.
school.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of reasons you take a year out. One, you guys are in school. You guys don't have enough time to study for the LSAT. You took it, you bombed it. You need to take it again. Take a year out, right? A lot of people come to me like, yeah, I'm going to take the LSAT in January and still apply. Hell no. Unless you guys plan to get a 175 in January, you're not getting into school. Why? Because you're not going to get your score. I think it's January 13th is the test date. You're not going to get your score until early February, by which I'd say 80% of the class has already been filled.
And you lose that scholarship money.
Well, the scholarship money is, guys,
That's not.
take it easy, okay? If you guys go to a law firm, it's about $180,000 you're going to be making out of a law firm. There's no incentive to do that unless you guys are going into, public interest law, exactly. And even public interest law, the sad reality of it, Berkeley was one of the best schools at churning out people in public interest law. But even like the repayment system was so difficult, and like the cost of education was so high, people just stopped doing it. And I just went like, you know what, I'm gonna work at a law firm for 5 years, make X amount, pay as much back, and then go into public interest. So if you bomb the LSAT, you gotta retake it again. You wanna make some cash, but even then, like how much money could you possibly make in 1 year and then apply to law school? I barely made enough because I was a legal assistant. But let's say you wanna make some money. So let's say another reason is that you're not 100% sure. So you're kind of sitting back, you graduate economics, you're kind of thinking about it. You go work at a consultancy practice for like a year, maybe 2, and then you're like, I still want to go back to law. Take that gap year to kind of figure it out before just kind of throwing your hat in there and doing that, right? These are reasons. Maybe your story, this is not a major reason, but maybe your story is not complete. Maybe you want to take a year out to really do some volunteer work. That makes your story more complete. The reality is, and I'm going to get to this is the crazy part. This almost sounds like the Twilight Zone. Today, you're writing your story for what you're going to write in your personal statement. Does that make sense? Who here is applying now? Well, who here is a senior? Okay, so you guys are all taking a gap year.
Yeah.
Okay, so nobody's applying this year. Okay, so there you go. So you're basically writing your story now. If you're applying today, you're doomed. That's it. Your story stopped because you got to write it. But you got to have another year. God forbid, you get into a traffic accident. You get sued tomorrow. That's part of your story. Could be part of your story, right? You get arrested. You see something happen. You have family that get held up on the border next month. That's part of your story, right? You got to take mental notes of all of this and everything that happened in your life so you can find that story, and I'll talk more about that. But that's very, very important. So that's another reason to take a year off as well. It's to kind of build up your story and your profile and so forth, okay? And then there's I quickly want to tell you guys like the trajectories of different types of areas that you can go into law, okay? So you have the lawyer, you got corporate law, the big law firms, you got the small mom and pops. Typically the people that go to like Southwestern, and the smaller law schools here in California, for example, most of them are not going to go to top law firms, right? There's not going to be top law firms are not basically recruiting at smaller tier law schools. But what they end up doing is, what I have mad respect for the folks that go to Southwestern and Cal, whatever, the other like smaller schools, is that they become very entrepreneurial. So they go into PI, personal injury, wills and trusts, family law, divorce and all that kind of stuff, bankruptcy, criminal law, right? So they become very entrepreneurial. Bob, Jack, and Jill all get together and open a law firm, right? So those are the big corporate law firms, the big ones we know them, and the small ones, right? You have in-house positions, which you don't usually do until after like a couple of years of practice. You guys know what in-house positions are?
No.
It's like, Amazon has an in-house team, right? For like anything they're getting sued and copyright issues, anything like that, right? Google has an in-house team. Facebook has an in-house team. Major tech companies, who's an engineer here? Nobody. Okay, so like engineers, a lot of them go into like, Apple or, or doctors. People even study and go into medicine. They end up working at like Genentech or something in-house because they have an engineering background and a medical background, right?
How does the salary compare to private law?
So if you go to a private law firm, a corporate law firm, typically now the starting salary is I think it's 180 or 185,000. These smaller firms, the ones that you start from the ground up is the ground up. The mid-tier law firms are probably about 150, 120. It all comes down then to billable hours. If you're working at a corporate law firm, game over. Your life's screwed. You could either be that guy who's like billing 2,300 hours, which you're like, what's 2,300 hours? It's about billable 9 hours a day. What the hell does that mean? That means you have to account for every 6 minutes for 9 hours in one day. Which means if you're getting water, that's not accounted for anything. That means if you're breathing, that's not accounted for anything. So you're actually at the office 12, 13 hours, of which 9 hours you can actually account for and bill a law firm. Bill a client, right? Because you charge about $300 to $400 an hour, of which you make after net maybe $60 to $100. The firm makes X, and then, that's how they kind of calculated it out. So you're working a hell of a lot if you're working at a corporate law. A more middle tier, they're like, no, your billables are only about 1,500 hours, okay? Hours per year. If you go in-house, again, you don't start in-house. It's really tough. They want you to have some experience. So you probably would start in-house and you're working 9 to 5, supposedly. And you're making, instead of 180,000, maybe like 160,000 or maybe 170,000, even though you have 4 years experience. So you just went from like a $260,000 or $280,000 salary down to 170, but now your life's back in your hands because you're working for one company on usually 1 or 2 matters. You're not distracted between like a whole bunch of different things.
And we're talking 3 to 4 years of experience before you get in-house. It has to be a corporate law firm, or it can be
It could be anything. You can work for government, and I'll go through that. Okay. Judges, obviously, so you can work as a clerk. You guys know like clerkships or working for judges and stuff like that. And those are for people those are like the academic dorks. Those are the guys who really are like way over me, right? These guys are the ones who want to write the briefs and write the opinions and so forth. Mad respect for them. Those are those kind of people, and then they will go from there to work at a law firm, and they will give them they're like, okay, go work at a judge. You're gonna make $60,000, and then when you come back to us, we're gonna get you to the second tier. So instead of 180, you're gonna make $200,000. To kind of help you out because you just took that whole year out, and they want somebody with like experience having worked on and writing opinions for judges. Plus, you know the judge well, so you got an in, right? So now they can basically say, oh, judge, whatever. Like, okay, that's cool. So like, what's the disposition like? How can you win cases in front of them and stuff like that, right? So you got the judge track, and obviously down the road you can become a judge. Then you have public sector. That's kind of what I did eventually, is work for the public sector. So there's a ton of lawyers in the US government, or in state government, local government, whatever it is, right? And there the pay is, like you're taking like a 50, 60% pay cut. But your hours are a lot more reasonable and the work is just chill. Unless you're working for like something like the Department of Justice where there's a ton of work, or you're an AUSA, assistant, you know what AUSAs are? like these are only like a finite amount of these jobs. These are like the smartest of the smartest of the smart, sharpest people, and they're working for the DOJ, protecting U.S. interests and so on and so forth. Okay. The professor track, obviously, if you have, that means you really want to get into a top 5 law school. Typically, most professors will come out of the top 5 for the major law schools. Columbia, Chicago, Yale, Harvard, Stanford are typically the main ones.
And for those JD PhD programs, is that something you should do after law school, or do you recommend applying?
Well, the crazy thing is I don't know the statistics of how many professors actually have the PhD, like as JDs or whatever. A lot of them have just, you know, the JD, and then they end up going into legal practice. And remember, the main thing for legal practice, if you go to a top law firm, a top law school, is how many publications you have and so forth, right? How you're adding to the discourse. And it's tough. I mean, if you ask, like, how much is the pay for your professors here at UCLA? It's probably like $80,000 to $120,000 is how much professors typically make. At law schools, they're probably about 120 to like 200 and change. It's got a lot more. Okay. Public interest law. You guys know the ACLU and so on and so forth. Super competitive to get into them. Typically, they poach only the top law schools. But awesome work. You know, you're talking like boom. You're getting right in the crux of like, you know, civil protections and so on and so forth. And then you got like the international aspect as well, which is working for development agencies, international organizations, UN, World Bank, and so forth. And they have legal divisions within those as well. That's pretty awesome work as well. ICJ's, International Criminal Court of Justice. There's the ICC, International Criminal Court, and so on and so forth. Any questions on the traditional stuff? Go.
So where would entertainment fall in?
Boom. That would be on either one of the law. Actually, the top 2.
So
either a big law firm that does entertainment law, or a small boutique that has like a couple of key clients that have been doing entertainment law for those guys, or labels, or even individuals that have like a pretty big, you know, like a lot of money that you basically work with them, or in-house, Viacom and Universal and whatever, and you're working in-house from the entertainment law perspective.
Okay. Right.
And then obviously there's like a gamut from like the music aspect to the movies aspect to the television aspect to the streaming aspect, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and like then the schools you're looking at are like the NYU's, UCLA's, the USC's, who are near those markets that have pretty strong entertainment.
Yeah,
Harvard would be like the best place to go for entertainment law. UCLA would be better. If I got into UCLA or Harvard, I'm going to go to Harvard. I don't give a damn about entertainment law because still you can leverage Harvard to pretty much do anything from that perspective. Here's some non-traditional stuff that you kind of think about. Politics. 23 out of the 45 presidents were lawyers. I don't know if you guys do that. Corporate, so you go in. Like I've had friends of mine who went straight to consulting with law degrees. McKinsey and so on and so forth. You could do that. You don't even have to go to law firm. You can just work. You just say I have a background in law, but you go into the business aspect. Technology. There's quite a few lawyers have gone into like, you know, the tech space in the Bay Area and so on and so forth. Journalism, business consulting, entrepreneurship. These are just a small taste of all the different things you can do in the legal field. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is it's not limited. People are like, oh, what are you going to do with law? Like, dude, there's so much you can do with it. Right? There's so many different things. And for me now, I don't want to practice law at a law firm. I try to avoid it like the plague. But the fact that I have a law degree, the fact that I'm barred in California, the fact that I'm barred in DC, the fact that I've done some kind of law is empowering. And it's awesome because you can kind of come to the table and be like, oh, what are you? A lawyer. Well, what do you bring to the table? I have these skills. What are the skills of a lawyer? Tell me. Persuasion. Communication. Analysis.
Critical thinking.
Oral advocacy. Zealous advocacy. Right? Critical writing. These are all key things, and that's what you guys want to talk about. That's what you guys want to improve. That's what you guys want to show the law schools that you have. That's what your recommendations have to really sing, is these key qualities. They don't want the guy who just sits in the library and just reads. It's not enough. You got to be out there. They want to see the volunteer experiences. They want to see the leadership that you guys are doing. That's important for people going to law schools. Any other questions on any of that? Go.
So would you say many people who go into the non-traditional route work in traditional fields prior to that to gain years of experience or so?
It's typically the safe bet. Not many of the people that, and this is, you got, I would implore you, and I'm going to talk about this, go to UCLA Law. Ask them, how many of your students take these traditional routes afterwards? If I was to hazard a guess, 80%, this is just a guess, 20% will probably go non-traditional. They graduate to take the bar, and then they go and do something completely different. The entertainment sector, not law. Political, not necessarily law, but politics, local politics. Stuff that you're talking about, like public affairs, all that kind of stuff, they could easily go into and transfer into that. You can go into work for the State Department, work as a diplomat, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go fast. 237 law schools, 60,000 applicants, average cost 43,000. That sucks. It's a reality. Okay. Top law schools rankings. They dropped us. I don't know why they got us here. We need to move up. Some BS right there. But you do feel comfortable in the fact that these are the only public schools. Welcome to America. In England, in Cambridge, it's a public school. Oxford's a public school. A lot of the top schools are public. In America, that's definitely not the case because these guys have enough endowments to last 3 lifetimes. Not these guys. But you guys can see the scores. Don't let these frighten you. I told you, I went to Berkeley with a 155, 154. So you never know. You just got to do the Hail Marys and see what happens. Questions on any of that?
I have a question, and maybe you're going to talk about this later, but would you pick ranking over location where you want to practice, or would you pick like regional-based schools based on what you want to do?
I got you, boo.
Okay.
I got you. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, I'm going to get to that because I'm going to go through all the things that you need to be thinking about. All the things you need to be thinking about when you're choosing the schools. So this one is a little bit of this about preparing for law school. So these are the kind of questions to ask yourself. Again, I'm going to target you. Ask yourself these questions. These are important to kind of think about. Like what skills am I developing? How am I, when you're applying to law school, you want to think about, do I understand the rigor of what I'm getting myself into? Am I familiar with the application process? Do I know what kind of fields of law exist? I just gave you guys a really good taste of a lot of this stuff, right? Of the different fields, from entertainment to public policy and so on and so forth. It's a lot of different things there, right? And this is important. This is what I was talking to you guys about. Do you guys have a pre-law advisor? Here at UCLA? No. You guys have the law fellows or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for the law school.
So talk to me about those guys. What is that?
I'm not part of the program, but law fellows is through the law school, and it's an application process. I think about 100 students, they get advice through professors, current students on the application process, on LSAT. They get an LSAT course afterwards for free.
So it's more like an application. Okay, so
it's more like an application. Yeah.
So a lot of schools have pre-law advisors that give you that do what I'm doing, but like for free, and they basically sit down and walk you through it.
Like with AAP, they do have. So I don't know if we have a specific pre-law advisor. I think the Career Center has one.
Yep.
But I've really never been able to find them.
Tap it into it. Figure it out from the top down and see if it's something you guys do.
AAP does have the academic advancement program. They do have pre-law advisors, and they have mentors from UCLA and stuff. So if you just in Campbell Hall, so they do have if you want to go pre-med, pre-law, whatever. So AAP Campbell Hall.
Good, thank you. Build up your reading stamina. I don't know how the hell you guys. I mean, that sounds really bizarre to say, but it's true. Because you're going to be reading like crazy and taking notes like crazy. And for the LSAT, you're going to be reading like crazy fast. It's all timed, so build your reading stamina.
Well, I know the LSAT is online now. Would you suggest people, they start reading Wall Street Journal, Forbes?
That's interesting. With online, right? Yeah, that's interesting. Back in the day, I feel like we were writing with feathers because it was all paper. It was awesome. I loved having it on paper.
Yeah.
You can circle the answer. You can see. You can go back to. You can cross it out. Now it's online. That's just the digital LSAT just started last administration.
Yeah.
So if your question is, should I be reading stuff online versus reading on paper? Yes, get used to that, but I mean, if you can read on paper, that's better for you. My reading speed sucks, which is so annoying, because it would be so nice to read much faster. So I actually would download the book on Audible, and then have the book in front of me, and then listen to it while I'm reading, and it just goes doubly fast, supposedly. I talk fast, but I can't read that fast, which would be annoying. Okay, go to law. Do background reading about law in school and practice law, some key legal experience. So some of you guys may want to do that over the summers. Especially the guys who are taking the year off. That could be an opportunity. It's not the best opportunity, but something to consider to work at a law firm as just kind of like a legal intern, so to speak, just to get a sense of what the office and whole experience is like. Audit classes at the law school. That's clutch. I'll tell you what I did at Berkeley. This is awesome. So when I was the editor-in-chief of the Berkeley Journal of Islamic Law, the way I got people to do a lot of the gopher work was went to people like you. And I'd be like, hey, do you want a great recommendation by a law student? They'd be like, yeah. I'm like, and you want to get a sense of what law school is about? Yeah, great. How about you come on and you do blue booking? Blue booking sucks. It basically means you gotta go. Why are you shaking your head? It was a great word. Every student that I basically had them do this like horrible labor for us, one got into Yale, one got into Berkeley, two got into Berkeley, and we wrote great like recommendations. They got an in into the school. And yeah, I mean, basically they did blue booking, which is basically check the citations of everything that you're writing in terms of these articles and stuff like that. Talk to current alum and students. That goes back to the pre-law advisor, but just talk to people who've been to law school to get a better sense of it. Audit the class, go to a professor, like if you want to do entertainment law, go to a class and check out entertainment law, just even one. And then you can talk about that in your application. Having checked out Professor Jack, who taught entertainment law, I was fascinated by the X, Y, Z, and D. That's a hell of a lot better than me saying, I'm into entertainment law. What have you done about it? Nothing, I just thought it was really cool because I like influencers. Come on, right? There's like law school boot camps. You went back to the law school fellows, so some of them offer the boot camps and so forth. That's interesting as well. Any questions on any of that?
Hey guys, Hamada will be here for about 5-10 minutes after to answer your questions outside. So.
Cool. Please.
When you're talking about the boot camp, so like what test practice company would you recommend, like in terms of like Kaplan or Testmaster?
I took Testmasters. There's Blueprint. There's a whole number of them. It really depends what you want to do, because you can take the ones that are really kind of like the main ones, the Kaplans and so forth, and you can take small LSAT test prep. That's just like one person giving you 10 hours for the same amount that you would be doing at a test prep company. They give you all the reading materials. The one-on-one is always good because they'll really zero in on what your mistakes are and so forth after you've taken a couple of diagnostics. But I took Testmasters 3 times and we talk about like, what is it, the definition of Einstein with insanity. I was like doing the same damn thing 3 times in a row and I kept on screwing it up. I don't know why I thought I was going to improve.
Were you doing it with the general course or
the general course? No, because when you do also the one-on-one, it's also expensive. But if you know exactly your area of concern, then you can kind of zero in and you don't have to pay for a small portion of it. So these are all the different things that you guys have to think about. Registering for the LSAC, the LSAT versus the GRE, you guys know the difference?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say I think only about 20% of law schools take the GRE over the LSAT.
And it's going up, it's going up.
It's going up, but I don't advise it. I really don't. Especially for law school, I think the GRE versus GMAT, more people are taking the GRE than the GMAT. But for law school, I really say just crush the LSAT. Unless you guys take the LSAT once and really get hammered, then try the GRE. But I really don't think it's something that I wouldn't take that risk because you never know. It's counterfactual, but you're like, you know?
How does admissions to master's programs work without the GRE?
Oh, if you're applying to a master's program.
Yeah.
Versus?
If, or like what you did when you applied to the Kennedy School at Harvard.
Yeah, then you definitely have to take
the GRE.
Yeah. But I could have also used my LSAT.
Okay.
I took the LSAT 100 years before.
Yeah.
But if I had taken the LSAT, I could have also applied it for the Kennedy School. The application process, we'll talk about this in a second. Personal statement, diversity statement, addendum, resume, and we'll go through this more in detail. Letters of recommendation, you guys should be thinking about it now, especially because you guys are going to dip, and then you're going to try to come back next year and be like, hey, remember me. So don't get the letter of rec now, but plant the seed, especially if you can sit with the professor and be like, hey, listen, I'm going to ask you for a letter of recommendation probably in about 6 months to 8 months. Just want to let you know and just get to know them. So when you send that email, they know what's going on. And the way I did it, just really quickly, is that I printed out my resume, transcript, and my draft personal statement, and I went into their office and sat down and presented all that to them. And then back in the day, we were mailing in letters of rec. So they got to know me. I made it very easy for them. They remembered me, so they wrote really good letters of rec. You just don't want to email them and be like, hey, you got 2 days. Like I gave them like a 3 month heads up. And because I was in the honors program, I had the professor teach me as a TA in the small sections. So you get to know them really well. So if you can get into any of those classes, that's awesome, because then you get to know the professor really, really well. Okay? Some of the schools ask for specific short answers and so forth. Like I remember Michigan says, why Michigan? Right? What I try to do with that is to take the diversity statement sometimes and kind of manipulate it to fit some of the short questions or some of the supplementary statements of these schools. Because some schools don't ask for that. And then the financial aid, well, I'm going to punt on that because that's just way too hard to talk about in this period of time. I'm not going to go through that. That's the LSAT. You guys don't have to think about it now. There's the LSAT versus the GRE. Okay. What?
Do you want to go over this?
No, definitely not. Anything that talks about LSAT makes me like queasy. But just know now it's 8 times versus 4.
Yeah.
You know, which is interesting, right? And as I said, like some of our clients are coming back and they're like, oh, can I take the LSAT in January and still apply? And I'm telling you, don't do it. Just don't. Unless you can literally guarantee. And I literally thought I was going to do better and I did worse. So there's no guarantees. Okay, and then basically picking the right school. So this goes back to you. Whew. Okay, so pro tip, obviously you want to do this, right? You got reach schools, target schools, safety schools, right? So remember I told you I applied to 17? I applied to like my reach schools, which are the really tough ones, the ones that I have about a 0 to 15% chance. And then you've got target, I have high targets, low targets. High targets, 15 to 25. Low targets, 25 to 40%. Safeties, again, high safety, low safety. But the questions you want to ask yourself is, if I get into one of my safeties, am I really going to want to go? And that's always a question you're going to ask yourself. Because you're like, do I really want to go to this crappy law school I really don't want to go to? Should I take a year out and retake the LSAT? So that's a question you want to ask yourself when it comes to safety. It's a pretty big commitment, it's a lot of money. But these are the kind of things that you want to be thinking about. The rank, you asked me about city versus not. Let's give you an example, classic. Would you go to Vanderbilt over UC Hastings? What's Vanderbilt ranked at?
18.
Maybe 18 to 20. What is UC Hastings?
60?
No, come on. Hell no.
No, they're pretty low.
30s. It's low 30. It's low 30. So maybe 38, 40. But what's the difference? Where's Vanderbilt?
It's
In the middle of nowhere.
well, it's in the south. So.
Deep south.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay. Where is UC Hastings? In the belly of the beast of San Francisco. You want to get a job in San Francisco. You want to network in San Francisco. You want to talk to judges in San Francisco. Chances are they went to UC Hastings, right? So think about that when you're applying, right? These are the kind of decisions that you have to make. And we've had people kind of like, I wish I'd never gone to Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt's a great school. If you had between Vanderbilt and UC Davis, I'd probably go to Vanderbilt because UC Davis is still in the middle of nowhere, right? And then the question would be, if I want to practice law in California, but I'm going to school in Wisconsin, is that a problem? No, because you just come back and take the bar. We're not taking California-specific classes in California. You're doing general law, federal law, typically. And you're going to learn everything else in the bar. Okay? So don't let that freak you out. Like, well, I got into NYU, but I really want to practice in California. Should I go to UCLA or NYU? Go to NYU. Right? Because then you get the best of both worlds. You got the NYU, New York experience, but you also will come back to California and practice here because, again, you can do that. So I have that written there, the focus of the school. So like, you know, with like NYU, great school for international law. Great school for tax.
Number one.
Right. Great school for tax, right? But let's say you got into UCLA entertainment law.
Yeah.
Versus Harvard. Again, I'm going to tell you, go to Harvard because you can make whatever the hell you want to make at Harvard. Harvard's Harvard. But you get into UCLA for entertainment, and then you get into Chicago. You'll probably go to UCLA.
Okay. All
Right? So you got to think about that in terms of areas of focus. Why? Because also you may be like, dude, I hate entertainment law. You look like you're the kind of guy who would love entertainment law.
Oh yeah, I'm like really into it. And my other question that I did want to ask you, it definitely does relate to what you're saying. So my question was going to be like, would you rather go to like a prestigious university with like less opportunities in your field, or a more prestigious university?
University with less, yeah, I got it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of fumbling
and
up.
For
with
me,
my
I always shot for the highest. I really
Okay.
want to get into the best law school, and it's proven itself its worth. The connections I made, the caliber of the academics, the caliber of the professors, the opportunities, the people that recruited at these schools.
Yeah.
These are all important.
Mhm.
Okay. Other things you want to think about: the alumni network in terms of city and how big that is. Resources, the different journals, clinics, career centers, the intensity. So Berkeley was pass no pass. Awesome. I didn't have to worry about B pluses and B minuses anymore. Diversity is very important, right? You don't want to, their schools are going to be like predominantly one ethnicity, and that sucks. That's what happened to me when I went to UCSB. It was like pretty bad because at the end of the day, I felt like I was one of the only people of color on campus. But those are the kind of things that you want to kind of think about. These are the kind of things that you don't want to end up doing. Oh, hey, my boy's going in, or my girlfriend's going to. Don't, dude. Right? I'm only going to go to Harvard or nothing else, right? Or I got financial aid to go to Loyola Marymount, but I got into UCLA. It's a tough one. I've had clients that we've worked with, I got full rides. I think last year I had 4 people that got full rides to Loyola. Some people got into UCLA and USC. It was a tough call, because a full ride's a full ride, right? Some of them decided to go to Loyola because they knew they want to practice law in California. They want to practice law in Los Angeles. They didn't care about the top law firm. They were probably going to take over their parents' law firm. So they didn't care. It didn't matter they went to UCLA or Loyola. They just needed the JD and they needed to go to a decent school. Think about those kind of things, right? If you want the flexibility to get the hell out of the state if you want to, or go and do something internationally, you want to go to a more prestigious law school, okay? I'm going to zoom through that because this is my favorite part, and I've only got 7 minutes, damn it. Okay. Writing the story itself, and I'll try to get through this faster. And I'm actually not going to start with that because that's just way too complicated. So I'm just going to go into, God damn it, these are such good slides. Okay, I'm just going to get straight into the essay itself. Okay, so when you're writing the personal statement, if you want to take a picture, shoot, because this stuff is awesome. So when you're writing the personal statement, you want to think about how you're going to start the essay, right? That is so important, right? Do you want to start the essay like, I want to go to law school because?
No.
I want to become a lawyer because, right? Or do you want to talk about your story with your parents and the border, right? You want to talk about your story in terms of, I can't remember. But what, you know what I'm saying? Or your story about the criminal law stuff and the social justice system. If you talk about the criminal law and the social justice system and you got no connection to it, that's not good.
Right.
So you need to have something. I'm really pissed because Kamala Harris was blah, blah, blah. Yeah, right? Because you can erase your name and he'll put his name on it and it's his application now, on her application or his application. It's got to be personal to you, right? So if you're going to talk about something that's impactful, talk about something that's really personal to you and then make that linkage, right? You can't run away from the fact that immigration, if you just talk about immigration and the wall and everything, and then you're like, okay, why does she care about it than anybody else other than she's a humanitarian? Well, because I have family on the other side or I have some connection to it. Now it's interesting, right? When I applied, I was applying, think about like fortuitous, Iraqi, the Gulf War, 2003, and literally it was picture perfect. It was like, Saddam disappears, I'm thinking about what role am I going to play, and I kid you not, this is when you know you crushed it. 9 years later, I did exactly what I was talking about in my application. That's the kind of stuff. You want to get goosebumps from this. You want to feel the catharsis. You want tears to come down as you write this. This is not a BS statement. This is literally one of the most important things you'll ever write. 15 years after I wrote it, I still read it now. I'm like, damn, this is a great essay. I'm not even kidding. It was just so cathartic. I was like, I put everything into it. I got everything, every word, every sentence, everything. You only get 700 words. That's very prized real estate.
I think they've put it down to, now they say, no.
It's 2 pages double spaced,
yeah,
essentially. So you have the thing, you wanted to start it off with something really profound. Really profound. Quotes, actions, things like that, right? But don't make it cliche. Make it sound and make sense, but grab their attention. You got so many people applying to these schools, you want to grab their attention from the jump, right? And then contextualize it, provide a roadmap, and then how it influenced your kind of career goals, all within the first paragraph. Don't shove it in there. Every sentence kind of molds in. You don't have to say, and that's why I want to go to law school. It could just be implicit. Like, we know that's why you want to go. Like, when you're talking about public affairs, it's not rocket science. I'm like, I see the trajectory. It's making sense, right? So then you talk about your background. This is a typical personal statement. This is the winner chicken dinner. Every time we've worked on these essays, this is how we basically advise our clients. You have your family background, where you started, how this influenced you, because everybody has a genesis. There's every action of you right now. Why am I so amped about this? If something happened in my life that got me really amped about this process, right? There is a genesis to it, and you want to put it there. You want to basically create the foundation of who you are, okay? Then you want to get into life experiences, right? And how who you are influenced your life experiences, academics, school education, volunteer experiences, all that. Then you want to get into the career goals. Given all of this, this is why law makes sense. It's the next step. It's what I have to do, right? Then you talk about that tees it off, and now that I know I want to go to law because of everything I've done, this is why I want to go to your school. So if you guys are applying to UCLA, you can definitely have a connection because you're at the school. If you're applying to Timbuktu and you're like, well, I don't have a connection to the school, let's skip that paragraph, let's skip that section, because you may not have a connection to that school. I tried my best to find connections and make connections, visited the school, talked to an alum, really researched the hell out of it, and not just research what I found on the website, but research stuff that made sense, that really stood out, okay? And then finally concluded, bring it back full circle, like a movie, right? How does the movie start? What's the opening scene of your life? What's your opening scene of this essay? It reaches a crescendo, and it comes back down and brings it all full circle. We feel very good about that. That's what readers want to see. Any questions on this? I blitzed through this, but this is really key information. I'm not even going to go into who the hell we are, but just a quick, this is kind of how we started this. Great team. A lot of them actually went to the UCs. And I really push a lot of diversity, so within my team we speak 10 languages, we've helped people from over 30 countries, and we have a ridiculously high success rate for law, more than almost any other program. We did MBA, medical, you name it. But for law, we're really, we just are very, very good at it. Because I think I've been through it a lot, you know, personally, and it became something that when I write the training manuals and so forth, it was really kind of close to home. And this is it. So this is, if you guys want, email us, free consultation if you guys want at all. Contact us at your discretion. I've sent this around. I don't know if somebody hasn't filled it out.
Raise your hand if you're in.
And then we'll send you guys, we'll kind of loop you in, newsletters and our information and stuff like that. But you can email us, we'll set up a free consultation with some of our experts, just to see where you guys are at. Hey, you know, I'm really thinking about this, or especially for you guys who are taking the year off, like what advice, what do you guys should be thinking about in these last 6 months before you graduate, and what you guys should be doing in that year out, right? We have 2 key services, the law school package, we talked about that, the personal statement, why you want to go to law school, diversity statement, how you're going to add value to the class, addendum, I bombed the LSAT, this is why, and resume, right? Or I screwed up the GPA or whatever. And then law app is just a real snapshot. It takes about a month and tells you exactly where you are and what you should be doing to go to the next step. So this is something no other company like does, which is just take a snapshot of where you are and where you should be going. Because a lot of people are like, dude, I'm not ready to kind of commit to this, but tell me where do I stand? Well, here's your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, SWOT analysis. We tell you what schools you should be thinking about, what kind of narrative direction you should be going, all that kind of stuff, okay? Also, for free, sample essays on our website. And our website is, you know, obviously righttrackadmissions.com. Sample essays. We have a blog, Quora. Bananas on Quora. Like I have 100 answers on that bad boy. Checklists. We got tons of video content, all that kind of stuff. I constantly travel around and do these little videos everywhere. My office manager forces me to do it. And then you receive a bonus if you guys hit us up for attending today. And that is it. Boom.
Thanks so much, madam.
Cool.
Also, guys, so a few of you have contacted us for the blueprint, discount prices and everything like that. We have a blueprint LSAT seminar tomorrow. So